If everyone can find his or her or they seat, we will begin our program. And again, I want to thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it very much. I'm going to turn the program over to the others now, but I just have to say one other thing. We have an exceptional president of the Windham County Branch of the NAACP who has given this organization and the residents of Windham County tremendous service. But in doing all this, a couple of weeks ago, he actually officially became Dr. Stephen Gillum, PhD, and no easy task.
We already did this, but I think we also need to clap for Cliff, who put this all together. So welcome. I'm Lisa Sparrow, the Chair of Religious Affairs for this chapter, and so honored to do that. This gathering, as some of you may know, echoes hundreds, maybe thousands of other such gatherings which have taken place since the founding of the NAACP in 1909. This evening, we will hear the voices from the community, all of whom are working together to achieve equity, political rights, and social inclusion for all peoples. To begin, however, we want to acknowledge the people who came first to this place. Rich Holscher is a Windham County resident. I'll let him pronounce the words in Abenaki, and European heritage, and an indigenous cultural researcher. He serves on the Vermont Commission for Native American Affairs and is a public liaison for the Elwell Abenaki tribe, representing with governmental agencies of oversight such as the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the Vermont State Department of Historic Preservation. I just want to note that how great is it that we have an Indigenous person on those committees. He also interfaces with other tribal groups, corporate entities, other local and state agencies, civic groups, and public and private educational institutions, providing outreach, education, and building connections. And as importantly for us here tonight, he is the director of the Atawi Project here at the Retreat Farm. Atawi is an Elnu Abenaki community initiative to affirm Native relationships to the land and its inhabitants, to raise Indigenous voices and to foster inclusion with understanding in place. I'm so pleased to welcome Rich Holscher.
Uliuni Lise, thank you. Kwainidobak. Pakwinonguzian. Nugodam Namyolan Pamlon Quick. De Lewizi Lisa. De Indai Wantastigak Tali Sukwakik. Ulipayo Yodalik Ndakina Sukwakik. Ta Wantastigak. I am called Rich, as Lise amply explained. I am from this place. I am of this place. I am a citizen of Elnu, a Abenaki tribe here in the southeastern part of the state. And the Abenaki people have been here for a long, long time. They and their ancestors, up to 13,000 years. Asquanol Dibana Yodali, we are still here. So I want to welcome you to this place. You know it as Brattleboro. Brattleboro is named after a man named William Brattle Jr., who never lived here. He had a lot of money. These are the values that create the history that we repeat to ourselves. That history is incomplete, and it leaves a lot of people out. And it's not by accident. That is part of the work that the NAACP is engaged with, It's part of the work that the indigenous people of this place now called Vermont are engaged in. Tell you the stories that you don't know, you should know, and we would all benefit from. These are stories of relationship. To be indigenous is to be in relationship with place. So this place, if you would like to repeat after me, is called Wantastagok. Wantastagok. It has been that for a very, very long time, and it still is. That will never change. This is a sacred place. People have been living here and coming here on pilgrimage for a very long time. It is marked as such by cultural memories on the landscape here. But we're all here now. Not everyone's going to go back where they came from, whether that was willing or unwilling. We have to figure this out. The future is what we decide to do with it, because time does not exist. Everyone who has ever been here is still here. They are here under your feet, in the earth, and they have become us. And we will create the future through our children. So it's a great responsibility, but we're honored to accept that, share it with us. And I want you to enjoy yourselves tonight. I guess you're up next, Stefan, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I'll leave it on that, but Ulipayo Yodali, welcome to this place.
Thank you so much. I'll keep it short. So hello, everyone. It's always interesting hearing myself on mic. Welcome to our third annual Freedom Fund dinner. For those who do not yet know me, my name is Dr. Stefan Gillum. Thank you. And I have the pleasure of serving as the founder and president of the Windham County Branch of the NAACP. The theme of tonight is building community and growing stronger together. The topic of building community might sound cliche to some, because there are so many talks of what community is and who belongs to it. If there is one thing that over a decade of civil rights work in my short 33 years on this earth has taught me, it is that the term and meaning community is complex and multifaceted. To some, it is church on the Sunday morning. To others, it is standing side by side in solidarity with those who would trust your life with. To some, it is gathering around the kitchen table to share a meal with family. And to some, it is walking into the world in spurts of solitude, adventuring and doing good works when and where you can. The NAACP is powerful because it draws us all, from all communities and all walks of life together, to break bread and commune in the name of the greater good. The Freedom Fund dinner was created out of respect for all people from all backgrounds, because we are all tied together in pursuit of our best selves and towards the creation of a better world that sees us as equal and treats us as such. The representation of this dinner feels extra special to me this year because we are living in particularly tumultuous times. Large portions of the world are on fire. Other portions are melting, and some have already melted away. Countries and entire populations, from Africa to Asia to Europe to the Americas, are being killed and caged, all in the pursuit of power. Our own Supreme Court is working hard to roll back the rights of women, creating a possible feedback loop that seems likely to disband the rights of queer and BIPOC people in our communities alike. In short, we are under attack on many fronts and in many ways. I know that the state of our planet and country feels overwhelming. And in times of overwhelm, the thing that many of our nervous systems tell us to do is cling to our loved ones and weather the storm. It is this standing still in the midst of chaos that has been a strength for so many and in many contexts. And it comes from a place of deep wisdom. But I ask all of you in this crowd here today, do you think that now is the time to stand still? I certainly do not. If there was a time to stand up and fight, it is now. Right now, the luxury that we have in this great nation to do more thriving than living or surviving is under attack by forces that are both seen and unseen. So I ask you all, what are you going to do about it? Are we going to stand and organize? I say yes. Are we going to be kind? I say yes. Are we going to stand up for others who do not look like us or share our background? I also say yes. But will those things be easy? To that, I would say no, not at first. But as my grandmother used to say to me, suffering may come for a night, but peace be coming in the morning. I would add to my grandmother's words to say that peace is you, it is me, and all of our generations who hear the call of justice and somehow find their way to answering it. It is our time to answer it. Also, before I take my seat, I would like to add that while there are so many places that the people we aim to honor tonight could be, that we were fortunate enough for them to choose to spend some time with us. In the name of this rare convening of leaders and beautiful people from all across the state in the name of civil rights, let tonight be a time of grace and love giving. Let us take a moment and give ourselves permission to forget our troubles and simply be in community with others dedicated to change. I give you all the grace and permission to do that, and I hope you take it. Thank you, I love you all, and enjoy the dinner. We will have Mark Thurman come up now for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hello, hello, hello. I don't know how to come up after an amazing speech like that, so big shout out to Stefan. Just a quick thank you to Cliff Wood and Stefan just for your guidance and your mentorship to me. Really happy to be here. So I guess very quickly, just those that can and able to, if you can stand real quickly and face the flag. Those that aren't able to, it's all good. So let's try to say this together. Last time I did this, I feel like I was like in middle school or high school. I'm not sure. But we're going to do it together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, for one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Jordan Johnson and Virgil Nutterick is coming up. Hopefully I got it right. My bad if I didn't.
Please stand again.
Before you rise for the national anthem. 1, 2. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the checkered stripes and bright stars, through the perilous fights, o'er the ramparts we watch, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you for that performance. I always wanted to sing like that. You know, you can't have it all, I guess, whatever. So it is my pleasure to introduce, and distinction really, to introduce the president of Niacc, the New England Area Conference of the NAACP. This human being, Juan Cofield, is a wonderful person and a great leader. He leads us all New England states, from Maine to Rhode Island, to Vermont, to Massachusetts. What's the one I'm forgetting? And Connecticut. No shade to Connecticut. I saw a couple hands go up over there. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I promise to keep this short and sweet. There are a lot of nice things that I could say about Juan, but I would like to let you introduce yourself, Juan, and everybody to give him a round of applause as he comes up. Introducing Mr. Juan Cofield, president of Niacc, New England Area Conference of the NAACP.
Good evening, everyone. As Stefan has given me a wonderful introduction, I'm pleased to be here with you. Again, I'm Juan Cofield, president of the New England Area Conference of the NAACP. And the New England Area Conference, most of you have probably never heard of the New England Area Conference of the NAACP before. The NAACP, the New England Area Conference, is the governing and coordinating entity of the NAACP for the states that Stefan indicated to you, the New England area states. And I had the pleasure of helping Stefan in the organization and founding of the Windham County Branch of the NAACP. That's one of the responsibilities of a state conference, and that is to help in the development and founding of other units of the NAACP. So I'm pleased to be here with you. It is indeed an honor, and I'm pleased that one of the things that a state conference president does is to, when there is an expression of interest, to look at the person who is the organizer and the primary founder and see if they meet the measure by our expectation and can carry out the role and to lead the founding of the branch and the early days of the branch. Stefan has done a wonderful job. Thank you, Stefan. And I also want to thank the leadership team of the Windham County Branch. No one person is carrying all of the load of the work of the NAACP. The successes that the Windham County Branch has has exhibited is a result of the work and the leadership of the president, but also the executive committee. So, executive committee members of the Windham County Branch, I thank you as well. I also want to recognize and say to Catherine Long, who is here representing Senator Leahy, that we appreciate the work that Senator Leahy has been doing and continues to do in representing this state and so many of the ideals of the NAACP. And she, on his behalf, will accept the Lifetime Achievement Award this evening. Thank you. As you know, community building is the theme of the evening, and there are 2 awardees, and I want to commend the Brattleboro Chief of Police, Norma Hardy, and the Brattleboro Town Manager, Peter Elwell. One of the things that I know when I'm asked to come and provide a welcome to groups like this is to recognize and know that I am not the keynote speaker, and therefore I know when to sit down. Thank you so much for being here. I bring greetings from the New England Area Conference. Have a good evening.
Alrighty, hello everybody. Thank you all for coming. My name is Nader Hashim. I am one of the vice presidents of the Windham NAACP, and I made a promise earlier today that I was going to keep this very, very short. So I will be introducing our next speaker, and I've had the pleasure of actually working with our next speaker, Susanna Davis, when I previously served in the House Judiciary Committee. I've always been impressed and have always appreciated her breadth of knowledge and dedication to social and racial equity in Vermont. Susanna currently serves as the Director of Racial Equity in Governor Scott's office and is also here as a representative of his administration. So I will stick to my promise of keeping this quick, and I will hand over the mic to Susanna. Thank you.
Some tall people in the program. Buenas tardes. It feels so good when you say it back. Can you hear me okay in the back? Thank you all for being here. I'm Susanna Davis, Racial Equity Director for the state, and I am not here to speak my own words. I am here to speak the words of the governor. So I come bearing greetings on very high quality paper. August 13, 2022, Dr. Stefan Gillum. And the governor writes, "Dear friends, I am sorry I could not attend the Windham County NAACP's dinner honoring my friend, Senator Patrick Leahy. This event is a great opportunity to celebrate Senator Leahy's long and extraordinary career dedicated to serving the people of Vermont. The senator has spent decades advocating for our state in the U.S. Senate, and I appreciate his willingness to work with our administration and many before us to secure a better future for Vermonters. I would also like to thank the Windham County NAACP for your important efforts to increase equity and inclusion in Vermont and for hosting this event. Senator Leahy has made a significant impact, and your recognition of his work is appreciated. Again, Congratulations to the senator on his impressive career. Sincerely, Philip B. Scott, Governor. Now, I am both greedy and a liar. I will say some words because there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, I thought you were actually going to cut me off. I was like, this man. I just wanted to say, I see the senator staff here. I see a lot of familiar faces here. And when I found out that this event would be honoring Senator Leahy tonight, I was very pleased and excited and disappointed. It's so bittersweet to think that we won't have him as our senator forever. But he's a wonderful man. He's a lovely man. Each of us has benefited from his service and will continue to benefit from his service. Before I came here this evening, I was talking to a relative of mine who asked what my Saturday plans were, and I said, going to an event. We're honoring Patrick Leahy. And we asked my relative, you know who Patrick Leahy is? And my relative said, yeah, the basketball player, right? And I said, I don't know any basketball player who's fifth in line for the presidency, but I suppose anything is possible in America. In any event, I will cut it short. I thank you all for having me. Again, on the governor's behalf, I do apologize that he's not able to be here, but I do hope that the senator and his team and his office and everybody in this room really feel the love and feel the community that we are building, not just this night, but every single day. When it's not fun, when it's not beautiful weather, when it's not sexy, when it's not easy, because it's worth it. Thank you all so much.
Hi. Ooh, I like this mic. I feel like it just projects a lot. Hi, everyone. My name is Wichi Artu. That's it. That's my speech. Thank you. Goodbye. Wichi, like Quichi with a W. Pronouns he, him, his. Thank you so much for being here tonight. 300 people. That is impressive. And I'm here to introduce our U.S. Congressperson, Welsh, and I am very happy to have that honor. The first time I met Welsh, you had come down to Brattleboro to actually talk to us about our COVID response. And I was like, I called my mom, I was like, I'm about to be on a table with one of our U.S. Congress people. I would like this moment for you to say you're proud of me. No, and just like really down to earth, really, really willing to listen and really willing to just take those lessons and bring it back. And in fact, that was not the only time that Welsh has helped Windham County and has helped Vermont. Another time, I work on the Athens Weather Emergency Committee. If you don't know where Athens is, it's a small 400-person town between Townsend and Grafton. It is in Windham County. Thank you for asking. And we were trying to get a hold of FEMA because we had really bad floods last year. And they were just not getting back to me. And I contacted Welsh's office, and within 24 hours, I had a 3-year plan from FEMA. And I was like, how does that work? And, I later found out Welsh actually has been a community organizer since the 60s and has been, yes, has been a public defender for low-income people. So, you've been doing this work for a very long time. And we are so happy to have you. I'm so happy to have you. And I am so honored to introduce you, U.S. Congressperson Peter Welch.
God, it is so good to be here. Oh my goodness, NAACP in Windham County. Oh, where have I been? Why wasn't I here last year? I guess COVID, right? You know, I got to tell you, the feeling that I have being here with you and, you know, Rick's introduction and Stefan, there's such a feeling of inclusion. That's the feeling I have, that we're kind of all welcome and we're all in it together. And what I find so wonderful about that is that the NAACP, of course, was founded to fight against legal discrimination, legalized injustice, things that could be done that were ferociously unfair and punitive, but legal. And how is it that there were people, we're going to hear from Reverend Thomas, who I've heard speak before, inspires me always, that had a capacity to fight for justice, but with have love in their heart. How do you do that? The NAACP does it. And you know, Patrick Leahy does it. The first campaign I worked on in Vermont was when Patrick Leahy ran for the U.S. Senate in 1974. And I was in Windsor County and organizing local volunteers, and I met Patrick and Marcel. And that was the year when it was impossible for a Democrat to win in Vermont, because every year before that, it was impossible for a Democrat to win until Patrick won. And here we are now, where Patrick's made this decision to leave the Senate after 48 extraordinary years. And I want to say this. It's not easy to get reelected time in and time out to the U.S. Senate. Things change. So many of the people that Patrick went in with were defeated along the way. And what I know is the truth about Patrick and how it is that he was reelected and came to be revered is that he maintained his commitment day in and day out, year in and year out, to Vermont values. We trusted him. And trust is earned. You're not entitled to it. And every single day of his service in the United States Senate, he understood that his job, and by the way, he loved that this was his job. He loved that this was his job, was to help each and every Vermonter. It didn't matter whether they voted for him. It mattered that they had a need, that a family member was in trouble, that they wanted to figure out how their kids could get into childcare. And what a tribute. 48 years where when you look back at that life, unblemished integrity, joyful service for this beautiful state and the beautiful people in it. And of course, one of the things that stands out to me, among many, is how close, very, very close he was with John Lewis. And of course, a great privilege of my being a member of Congress was getting to know John Lewis and serving with him. And a memorable moment for me was when we had a demonstration on the House floor protesting gun violence. And of course, all of us revered John Lewis. John Lewis revered Patrick Leahy. Now, I am not exaggerating. They were dear, dear friends, and they worked together hand in glove closely all these years. And the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which we were able to pass in the House, and is being blocked by the filibuster in the Senate, is continuing to be a project that Patrick Leahy wants to get passed. So I just am thrilled to be with you and with the NAACP that has decided, Stefan, to honor this extraordinary Vermonter who, despite all his achievements, despite the fact that after he gets off the phone with you, and a lot of us have had a call from him, he's on the line with Joe Biden, okay? And you know what? He likes talking to us. Sorry, Joe, okay? Sorry. But I am thrilled to really be here with you to honor a person that all of us so admire and who has given us hope that public service can be a high sense of purpose and accomplishment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those beautiful words. I really appreciate them. I'll keep it very short. I will just say that the Honorable Patrick Leahy deserves to be honored. He deserves it. There are many people doing many things, and we don't get to honor them all. But sometimes the service is so great, the service is so powerful, that all we can do is step back and stand in awe of it. And it is okay to give people their flowers. It is okay to see that and to believe in that. And I am so happy and so thrilled that we all get to convene today to not only recognize each other, but to recognize someone who has dedicated a lifetime, over 50 years of service to us all. As an LGBTQIA identified person or a person in that community, as a Black person, as a biracial person, as a descendant of slaves, I am thankful because there were so many before me who were not able to be thankful publicly. They had to be thankful privately. And so I am thankful for people, regardless of their color, who stood up and fought when it was not easy to stand up and fight. Courage is not easy. It is not easy to show love publicly to those that others don't show love to. It's easier to do the opposite. And there are many of us, many among us who choose to do the opposite. With that, I would like to take the time to present the Windham County NAACP Lifetime Achievement Award to the Honorable Patrick Leahy, who I'm sad could not be with us today, but has sent a wonderful representative in John Tracy. John, would you please come up? Thank you so much. It's a nice plaque, right?
I'm the Vanna White tonight. The Senator and Marcel really wanted to be here, and for reasons that we all understand, they can't be. But they've invited us into their home in Washington, D.C. tonight. So here we go. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I assume the sound is coming through all right? Okay. Thanks, John. Peter, thank you for those kind, very, very kind words. You've been a wonderful partner to have all these years, and I look forward to watching your career in the U.S. Senate beginning at noon on January 3rd. Just happened to notice that date. You probably have too. But I want to thank all of you who are here for the annual NAACP Freedom Fund dinner. I wish I could be there with Peter and the others. Susanna, we've been at different things in Vermont, and it's great to hear your remarks. And Stefan, and of course, from my office, we have a number of people, John Tracy, Michelle Monroe, and Charles, you're there, and Catherine, I think I see your hand there, because we work as a family in the office, and it's some of the best members of my family are right there. I look at the history of the NAACP, and I was thinking of this as I listened to the music of Dr. Waymon. It's extraordinary. Think of quickly note, I was not in the Senate in 1905, although sometimes feels it. With the Niagara movement and the formal establishment in 1909, and look at the priorities of the NAACP. They worked so hard to remove the barriers caused by racial discrimination. I arrived in the Senate in January 1975 as the wake of Watergate. The Civil Rights Act had been passed 11 years before. The Voting Rights Act, 10 years before. It seemed like the nation was finally facing up, that they had to end Jim Crow. They had to confront the legacy of slavery and its aftermath. But I must admit the discouragement I feel when today, due to a Supreme Court decision, states across the country, and we see this every day, trying to enact and advance sweeping voter suppression laws. And that's all they are. They're voter suppression laws. They'll determine who they think they should vote. And it's going to make far, far more work for the NAACP and those of us who want all American citizens to vote. And then I look at the criminal justice system, which has incarcerated too many people for nonviolent drug offenders because of a failed policy of mandatory minimum sentences. The level of trust between law enforcement and communities of color is extremely strained because of a long history of unfair treatment toward minorities. And I, at the same time, would applaud those law enforcement agencies that have worked like mad to get rid of that discrimination. But and I worry, as a father, as a grandfather, I want all my grandchildren I want them all to be treated the same. And our LGBTQ plus friends and neighbors still face challenges in their everyday lives. Intolerance still presents itself as people practice the faith of their choice, and new immigrants arrive in our country. And people stand up and say, well, this group must be kept out of the country because of their religion or their color or their race. How would our ancestors ever have come into this country? I wonder if my Italian grandparents could have come into Vermont. I wonder if my Irish great-grandparents could. But we still have work to do. Peter, you mentioned John Lewis, one of the heroes, yours and mine. He said the work is better we do it together, arms linked in solidarity. Well, I want to bring, as a senator, these 48 years, I try to bring what's best about Vermont to the U.S. Senate, to link arms with senators across the country. I crafted the Leahy Law to stop our government from funding military units in other countries that were committing atrocities against civilians. I saw that on trips to Latin America and elsewhere, using American arms to commit atrocities. The Leahy law stopped that. In the wake of the Vietnam War, I knew that we had to do something to help the innocent civilians, especially children that are harmed in the war. John Tracy's been with me there in Vietnam. He's seen the scourge of the landmines and Agent Orange. So I created the Leahy War Victims Fund. Now that provides health care to victims of war and natural disasters around the world, not just Vietnam. And when I see what that can do, how important that is, and I think of the people who joined me in that in both parties, in the House and Senate, to get that money. Here at home, I led the efforts to put through the Louis Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. I want to make it cut out discrimination for people in the workforce to make sure they're paid the same. I held the first, actually the only hearing on marriage equality in the U.S. Congress. Where people say, why are you doing that? And I said, why? I'm a Vermonter. And that's what we Vermonters do. And I'm going to work to protect that right by passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. I'll keep working on that till the day I walk out of the Senate. Because we have to defend the rights John and others risked their lives for. My greatest honor is that he'd walk me into things on the House floor, and he'd say to people, I brought my brother. You know? Not bad. But these aren't accomplishments you do alone. You do it because we link arms together, just like every one of you have. The congressman said that sometimes my colleagues say, well, I'm nice, and so they can't say no. Well, I'm not that Machiavellian. I'd be kind to them. I'll work with them. I'll tell them when I disagree and when I agree. But it's what Dr. King knew. It's what John Lewis knew. And it's what Peter Welch does in the House with the people he works with. And Peter, I know beginning in January, you're going to work that same way in the U.S. Senate. So we're facing the greatest challenge of civil rights and justice and equality since the civil rights movement ended Jim Crow. We can't give up. We got to link arms. We got to fight together. What we have to do is, John Lewis said, get into good trouble and make sure we make these changes. We have to make sure that all children have the opportunity to fulfill their dreams that their parents and grandparents have for them. We have to protect families from the devastating effect of discrimination. In the violence of hatred, we have to stop the racial and ethnic fears so often used against the march of progress. It's not just the people that they show that racial discrimination against, it's our whole country. And when you have discrimination, the country is set back. Read what's on the NAACP website. Well, much of NAACP history is chronicled in books, articles, pamphlets, and magazines. The true movement lies in the faces of the multiracial, multi-generational army of ordinary people who united to awake the consciousness of a people and nation. Together we'll remain vigilant in our mission until the promise of America is made real for all. I guarantee you and I promise you, every day I have left in the U.S. Senate, I'll be fighting for that. And Marcel and I will join arms as we always have, both in Washington, but in Vermont, when we come back home for good, and know that I will continue that fight with you. I love you. I admire you. Thank you.
Please stand, please stand.
Thank you. Okay, enough. Thank you.
All right. I love it. So before we bring up our distinguished keynote speaker, Reverend Arnold Thomas, who is the pastor of Good Shepherd Lutheran Church, I would like to take an unscripted moment, which Cliff did not know about, to briefly give my personal thanks to three people who are here in this crowd. Like President Cofield said earlier, this is not a one-man show. There takes a lot of people who do more than me in a lot of cases to make the NAACP as powerful as it is. I would like to especially thank tonight Dr. Cliff Elwood, Miss Lyndall Bowl, and Miss Myra Tungatarova. Would you all please stand for just a couple seconds if you can? If you don't want to stand, that's okay. It's okay. But if you can stand, please do. Let's give them a round of applause. These are our unsung heroes. These are the persons that make the NAACP powerful. And they also deserve recognition. They move among us. They make the real moves happen. And they are the real community that we speak of. And I want to just personally say thank you. I see you. I appreciate you. I couldn't love you more. I would do anything for you. And I am deeply grateful for the work that you have done for this branch. And I look forward to working with you and the rest of my executive committee members from here on out, as long as I can. So anyway, without further ado, I would like to introduce Reverend Arnold Thomas. Oh, Emma Jean, you're gonna do it.
After nearly stealing my little piece here, I think I deserve the right to be formal, so I'm going to read my introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Imogen Drakes, and I am a member of the NAACP of Windham County. I have been given the distinct honor of introducing our keynote speaker, the Reverend Dr. Arnold Isidore Thomas. Reverend Thomas has been the pastor of the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Jericho, Vermont, since 2017. He previously served in this state as the interim senior pastor of Charlotte Congregational Church in Charlotte, Vermont. Dr. Thomas counts his father, the late Leroy Chadwick Thomas, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Dr. Letty Russell among the people who inspired him to follow his vocation of pastoring. He was particularly inspired by their faithfulness, love for God, and their authenticity. He cites his mother, Miss Lorraine Marjorie Ware Thomas, a former teacher, as the person who imbued him with a love of reading and widening his knowledge base. Reverend Thomas's academic accomplishments include a Master of Divinity degree from the Yale University Divinity School and a doctorate in ministry from Hartford Seminary. Dr. Thomas's love for and faithful followership of his heroes have led to his receiving the Martin Luther King Jr. Peacemaker Award in 1998 and the Walcott Calkins Award for Excellence in preaching from Yale University. Among his philanthropic accomplishments that he treasures the most are the implementation of Food for Thought in Jericho, the Racism in America Forum, the Criminal Justice Ministry of Arkansas, and the Center for the Study of Science and Religions with the Riverside Church and Columbia University in Harlem. Dr. Thomas is a much sought-after speaker in matters that relate to justice and equity. And on behalf of the NAACP of Windham County, I am pleased to introduce the Reverend Dr. Arnold Isidore Thomas. Thank you.
You can't imagine how deeply grateful I am to be invited to this third annual NAACP Freedom Fund dinner to address the topic of building community. I am especially grateful to the leaders of both Windham County Branch, led by Dr. Stefan Gillum, and the Rutland County Branch, led by Mia Schultz, along with event organizers, Dr. Clifford Wood, and my dear friend, the Reverend Dr. Lisa Sparrow. Congressman Welch, it is my hope that in the near future I will have the privilege of addressing you as Senator Welch. And I am equally grateful for the many decades of service and commitment and devotion that Senator Patrick Leahy has directed on behalf of this state and nation. My oldest son is also grateful that he is a Batman enthusiast. It is about a 3-hour drive from here, from my home in Underhill to here. And like many clergy rushing from one meeting to the next, I tend to have a lead foot. I confess this to Chief Hardy. I also confess that I purchased a specially licensed plate with the word pastor on it to diffuse any possible encounters I have with police officers. Specialty plates are also called vanity plates, and I can't help but wonder if God is somehow commenting on my purchase with the increased amount of bird droppings on my car. I came to Vermont in 1998 as the first Black denominational leader of the state. And at that time, there were less than a handful of Black Vermonters I could turn to as collegial and spiritual colleagues. They included Curtis Reed, Executive Director of the Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity, Roy V. Hill, Development Officer at the University of Vermont, and two revered community activists and teachers, Sha'an Moliette and the late Paige Watley Bailey. Together, they comprised a network that I called Black Tie, that made my tenure as conference minister of the United Church of Christ in Vermont bearable. But community beyond these ties and beyond my very supported family was equally vital, especially as the United Church of Christ in Vermont and the state in the early 2000s were simultaneously addressing issues of same-sex marriage, and being a welcoming haven for LGBTQ residents and visitors of the state. The state at the time preferred to term civil unions, but I and several other faith leaders, including Bishop Mary McLeod of the Episcopal Diocese of Vermont and Rabbi Joshua Chason of Mojave Zedek Synagogue in Burlington, felt that to classify a ceremony by a separate name with the hope of treating it equally as marriage was ultimately not treating it equally. Eventually, in 2009, the state saw the light. Still, it was during this time of civic and religious debate concerning the rights of LGBTQ Vermonters that I became keenly aware that stepping outside the social parameters traditionally prescribed and expected of Black people, advocating for civil rights and trying to be supportive of objectives of human rights outside the boundaries of racial civil rights was a dangerous ordeal. The harassing, threatening, anonymous phone calls were numerous, making me glad that I lived in a remote, rural, dirt road location not easily found, especially at night. It was especially during this time that I could feel the lingering presence of my brother Lee, who had aspirations of also becoming a minister, but realized that the conservative religious tradition which we lived would condemn him because he was gay. He therefore moved to a more tolerant environment in New York City, where he joined the First Presbyterian Church, which had a sizable LGBTQ membership, sang in the choir, fell in love, and entered a committed relationship with a Time magazine writer who at the time was unaware he had contracted AIDS. During the early 80s, this diagnosis was for many a certain death sentence, and even medical staff were reluctant to treat such patients. But the membership of this church, this First Presbyterian Church in New York City, provided around-the-clock vigil of care and healthcare advocacy for him, his partner, and other members of their church. Lee slipped quietly away from this life the morning of April 20th, 1984, Good Friday, convinced that despite the condescending religious bias of many and unconditionally loving and impartial God had prepared a welcoming place for him. The theme of today's program is building community, which is a fundamental matter of the life work I pursue. Community, as you know, assumes many facets of people who share a common interest, a common lifestyle, a common heritage, race, religious, ethnic, national, gender, transgender, or social identity. Humans thrive from a sense of connection and community with others. This seemed most apparent during the past 2 years of the COVID pandemic, when social in-person interactions and physical communities were drastically diminished, which heightened the level of anxiety and depression. However, in America and in Vermont in particular, we have yet to fully embrace the historical systemic reality that community has been intentionally divided and, in fact, barricaded along racial, economic lines for the preservation of white racist and economic hegemony. Now, racism is defined as prejudice plus power. We all probably harbor some degree of prejudice toward another group based on the stereotypic and distorted impressions that have influenced us. But when our prejudice is empowered by political, financial, military, and legal forces that enable us to enforce our fears, our suspicions, our mistrust and hatred upon others, preventing them from attaining the privileges we enjoy, then our prejudice, combined with power, becomes racism, becomes homophobia, becomes sexism, becomes xenophobia, becomes Islamophobia, or other forms of bigotry and oppression. My remark this evening, though focused upon the racial challenges this state and nation face, are not intended to diminish the bigotry other marginalized groups encounter. Because in each of these encounters, I find Black folk among them, raising the bar of kindred identity and proclaiming that none of us is free until all of us are free. The multi-talented entertainer. How many of you remember Sammy Davis Jr.? Raise your hand. I'm not alone in this. How many of you also remember the comedian Jack Benny? Raise your hand. Okay, good. It's important to know as I tell this. The multi-talented entertainer, Sammy Davis Jr., often joked that when once playing golf with Jack Benny, Benny asked, as many golfers do, "What's your handicap?" To which Davis replied, "I'm a Black Puerto Rican Jew with one eye." And while such a reply would understandably not be well received in many socially enlightened circles today, it nonetheless underscores the intersectionality of bias and bigotry, and that none of us should advocate for the destruction of any form of oppression without first acknowledging that the company we keep is with all marginalized communities, victimized by systemic oppression, is one we must identify with. Because again, none of us is free until all of us is free. To paraphrase Jesus, when we welcome those considered the least among us who are members of God's household, we welcome God as well. We are the company we keep, and none of us is free until all of us are free. But what is the company of Black America? Like any group, we are not a monolith. A recent Pew Research study indicated that 46% of African American Democrats identify as moderate. 46%. 25% identify as conservative, and 29% as liberals or progressives. And it is that conservative and moderate segment of Black Democrats divided over issues of reproductive rights, public education, the economy, criminal justice, and sexual orientation that Republicans are naturally trying to lure into their party. Still, when weighing the results of the 2020 elections, one of the most popular elections in U.S. history, Black Americans remain the most loyal constituents of the Democratic Party, with 87% voting blue and only 12% voting red. This was not always the case. Allow me a bit of history. This was not always the case. Up until the presidency of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his New Deal policies that that improved the living conditions of many poor and marginalized Americans, most Americans were Republicans, favoring the party of Lincoln that ended slavery. But Republicans under the presidency of Rutherford B. Hayes ushered in the era of Jim Crow segregation. When Hayes ended Reconstruction in 1876 by ordering the withdrawal of federal troops from the South and exposing Black Americans to hostile white resistance that continued until the enactment of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Both of these acts of legislation were opposed by the 1964 Republican presidential candidate, Senator Barry Goldwater of Arizona. And much of the then Democratic Southern delegation, often known as Dixiecrats, in the House and Senate, in a matter of years, moved from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party, comprising a new Southern conservative stronghold that exists to this day. With the 2013 Supreme Court decision to strike down elements of the Voting Rights Act, which allowed the federal government to intervene in states where discriminatory practices were commonplace, the door was once again open for states such as Texas and Georgia to enact voter suppression laws, inciting Black Americans to remember that the political party which betrayed its promise to protect and empower them politically when it ended Reconstruction is the same party that is suppressing their voter and civil rights today. Former Republican Senator of Arizona, Jeff Flake, in a national public radio interview with reporter Mary Louise Kelly, said that his party concluded after the 2012 election that it had to appeal to a more racially and ethnically diverse segment of America, but then left that decision behind to follow the narrowly focused agenda of the far right. Now, it's important that we understand the differences between conservative, moderate, liberals, and extremists regardless of political affiliation. Most conservatives favor what we commonly refer to as traditional values, including marriage, which they define as a union between a man and a woman. They see humanity in terms of male and female, and any deviation from that norm is considered abnormal. They endorse strong, uncompromising immigration policies. They support cutting taxes, keeping government out of business as much as possible, and an unhampered free market economy. They prefer state rights over federal rights. They're against gun control laws, support capital punishment, and oppose abortion under any circumstances. And while they are present in all political parties, they are most prevalent among Republicans. Liberals, on the other hand, favor equal rights and fair treatment for all, regardless of race, gender identity, sexual orientation, and other conditions that have historically marginalized and oppressed people. Because people are born in unfair conditions, liberals support federal legislation over state laws in enacting national policies that create a more equitable climate by which all Americans may have a chance in living productive lives. This includes stronger taxation over the rich to uplift the power of the middle class and poor, federal voting rights legislation as well. They prefer more compromising immigration policies. They favor strong gun laws. They oppose capital punishment for the most part and support reproductive rights. They see marriage as the mutual consent of equal partners to love and live with each other in a committed union regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. Liberals are most prevalent among Democrats. Moderates, as you might understand, find elements of both conservative and liberal movements they like without wholly embracing either camps. Republican Governor Phil Scott of Vermont, Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, and Democratic Governor John Bel Edwards of Louisiana are prominent examples of moderate leaders in both parties. However, when Senator Flakes, a Republican moderate, bemoaned the decision of his party to abandon a more racially inclusive course of action to follow the narrowly focused agenda of the far right, he was referring to an extremist element that would do anything at all costs to maintain power. There is historical precedent of such extremism in both parties. Following the election of Abraham Lincoln, it was displayed in the extremist act of Southern Democrats to secede from the Union to preserve slavery. But Flake, more specifically, was referring to the extremist fringe of his own party that resorted to abusive tactics, even the attempted takeover of the government to enforce its political demands. My fellow Vermonters, my fellow Americans, what is the company you keep? The majority of white Americans, both male and female, 57%, favored Trump over Biden in the last presidential election. It took a coalition of white and BIPOC voters to narrowly win the House, Senate, and executive offices of our land. And while Republicans are gradually realizing they need to attract more people of color to their party, they won't do it with voter suppression laws. They won't do it by enacting legislation that suppresses LGBTQ identities and lifestyles. They won't do it by whitewashing American history in local school districts. They won't do it by denying reproductive rights. And for these reasons, I suspect that despite predictions to the contrary, the Democrats in 2022 and 2024 will maintain and strengthen their hold in the House, Senate, and presidency. Now, while my remarks may seem and sound partisan, their intent is otherwise. The intent is that Americans of all political persuasions might evolve beyond their gated, barricaded political, religious, racial, financial, and economic patterns of familiarity, and finally see each other with an insight that identifies the common likeness, essence, and beauty of us all. Because, for better or worse, we are and reflect the company we keep. My ministry began under the most unexpected circumstances. My parents had moved from Alabama as part of the Great Migration of African Americans from the South to northern cities to escape segregation. Yet after graduating with honors from one of the most prestigious seminaries in the world, to discover that white New England segregation was not ready to welcome Black leadership, I wound up in a small, predominantly Black Southern church in Little Rock, Arkansas. It was one of only 2 United Church of Christ congregations in the state. So our 2 churches were therefore incorporated into the larger Missouri Conference, of which we were affectionately referred to as the Lost Tribes. During the drive home from one of these denominational meetings in Missouri, the car owned by a member of my church broke down in a small backwoods Ozark Mountain community called Omaha, Arkansas. With a population of less than 200, they had hardly ever seen anyone resembling the likes of us. And the manager of the service station we rolled into spent over an hour trying to find an auto mechanic that would serve Black people. As evening approached, he finally found one, a giant hulk of a burly white man no one with any sense would try to upset. After hitching our car to his truck, we climbed into the passenger and back seat of its cab as he drove us to his shop. The drive took about another 45 minutes as evening turned to night, with little casual conversation. His truck then turned off the paved road and onto a seemingly endless, narrow stretch of dark, wooded dirt road. No one said a word from that moment on, as I and members of my church feared the worst, that we were heading to our death, a lynching. And as the dim light of the destination grew brighter, he finally stopped the truck at the entrance to his barn. He squeezed out of the driver's seat, walked around to the passenger side of the truck where I was seated, and said, "My wife and I have prepared dinner and would be honored if you all would join us." It was during dinner and the time afterwards we spent in his company as he repaired our car that we became acquainted with the company he kept, including the family that raised him, the mostly black comrades in the Army, his precious children, and his open-minded wife, all of whom managed to create a welcoming oasis of light amid an otherwise dark and isolated forest. My fellow Vermonters, my fellow Americans, I close not with answers, but a question. In this, our forested Green Mountain, whitest state of the Union, what is the company you keep? What are the people, the communities you are trying to create that will recreate you into what you hope to become and into what others may become because of you? Thank you.
Sarah?
Good evening. My name is Sarah Lang. I am part of the NAACP Executive Committee, and I have the honor tonight of presenting one of the Windham County NAACP Awards of Appreciation to Peter Elwell. For those of you who don't know, Peter Elwell served the city of Philadelphia, township of Roxbury, and town of Palm Beach before returning to his hometown of Brattleboro to serve as its town manager. During his 7 years in Brattleboro, Elwell worked with the community, assisted the select board, and led the town staff in addressing a wide variety of municipal business matters, including budgets, infrastructure maintenance, and in new and improved services such as upgrading its police and fire facilities. His tenure also included initiating and sustaining intentional town actions on matters of diversity, equity, and inclusion. He leaves a much more diverse town workforce behind him. Peter Elwell was named the Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce Person of the Year of 2021 for his creative problem solving and commitment to serving the town he grew up in and then later came back to manage. He plans to continue to volunteer in the community. I have crossed paths with Peter on many occasions, and he has always presented a warm, welcoming attitude towards myself and all community members I've seen him interact with. Building community is very clearly core to Peter's life, and we're honored to present this award to him. Peter.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Dr. Gillum, and congratulations. And thank you to everyone involved with the NAACP, Windham County, and all of us who have come out tonight, 300 strong, to support the important work that our local NAACP is doing as part of the broader movement that continues on. Thank you, Reverend, for your amazing, inspirational reminder of how important every time we show up and interact with one another, how important it is to bring our whole and full and open-minded selves to those. And then broader, when we get together and we work as community and as teams of people addressing the needs that so desperately need addressing in our community and our state and beyond, how we show up there, learning from one another and together building community and making lives better. My life is better for the opportunity I got over the last 5 years or so of my time as town manager in Brattleboro to get so deeply into the work of racial equity here in our area and social equity more broadly. And while many of you under this tent deserve to be individually thanked, it's also getting dark, and there's not time for that. But I do want to call out 3 particular people who made a critically important difference for me in getting me involved with this work and helping me to get into partnership with people who have been in it for a very long time here and continue to be leaders in our community and pushing forward. Even as we're making progress and building some momentum, there's still so much more to be done. Most of all, I want to thank Curtis Reed. Who in his Curtis Reed way called me into this work, not overly gently, but certainly without a bit of scold. But not overly gently, but certainly with not a bit of scold. And that balance that you find, that you have found, that you have walked through your life with and this work with is amazing. I've seen that in so many different ways, some which I've been lucky enough to be involved with, and then in so many other times when you've made a positive difference here in our community and so far beyond, because of the ability to keep company, even sometimes with folks who may not believe what you believe or may not be working towards what you're working towards, but understanding that the way in which we welcome each other to the conversation opens up possibilities. So thank you for opening up that possibility for me. And I want to thank Diana Wally and Mary Gannon. Diana and Mary and I sat down in the summer of 2017 when, in my official role as town manager, I was just beginning to get into the work, going beyond trying to show up as a nice guy and not act in a racially prejudicial manner myself, but understanding the importance of taking that out into the work of creating a more racially equitable, socially equitable community. And in that day, which I'll never forget, when we sat in a conference room and talked through like how to get started with this in a community that at that time didn't have people of color on our town staff and hadn't approached racial equity as a matter of town governance. Where do we go with this? How do we create something here that does get town government properly involved in this work with those folks who had been so involved and so persistent with it already? And the most important lesson that day that they gave me was slow down and listen and learn, and then build those relationships through the listening and the learning that allow you to then move forward in a meaningful way. Thank you for that. I heard that. It helped me to perform my piece of this in the work that we've done together as a community so much more effectively. And the rest became easier and easier by just the building of those relationships and the maintenance of our picking each other up and moving forward at the times when things got tougher. So it has been my privilege, it will continue to be my privilege in a different form, to be involved with you all in this important work in our community as part of a greater movement. And can't say how much I appreciate receiving the recognition of this effort from the NAACP of Windham County. Thank you.
That's a lot to follow. I'm Laura Chapman. I'm the third vice president of the Windham County NAACP, and those that know me know I would much rather be on the other side of the computer facing you all that way than this way. But when I was asked to present this Community Builder Award to Chief Norma Hardy, I couldn't resist. Chief Hardy started work in Brattleboro on July 28th of 2021 after a stellar career with the Port Authority of New York. During the first bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993, she spent hours helping people escape the damaged complex. Then, in 2001, although she was off duty the morning the Twin Towers were hit, she rushed to the site. She worked on bucket brigades, long lines of people who searched the enormous field of steel and pulverized material inch by inch. In August 2013, Chief Hardy was promoted as the first woman to reach the rank of Assistant Chief of the Port Authority Police Department. In 2018, she retired from the department after 26 years of dedicated service. During her career, she received numerous awards. Upon her retirement from the Port Authority, the Daily News reported that Hardy never liked to lead on high and was often seen right next to her cops, no matter the situation. As someone that grew up right over the bridge from Manhattan and spent a great deal of time traveling through the Port Authority, partially during Chief Hardy's tenure there, maybe I even got into a little bit of trouble there once in a different life, and might have spent a little bit of time in the temporary lockup. I hope we didn't meet. I know it takes a really special person to hold that space. And as soon as I heard that Chief Hardy was to become our Brattleboro chief, I knew she was the woman for the job. I couldn't be more honored to introduce her to you all now and present her with this plaque.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Wow. Hello, everyone. This is really, I'm so honored. I just want to say thank you to you all, and I love to listen to Reverend Thomas speak. You know, I've had the pleasure of speaking to him over Zoom, and I love his voice. So it's like, you know, to get to hear him tonight was such a pleasure. Congratulations, Dr. Gillum, and thank you, NAACP Board, for this honor. Thank you, Vermont, for having me as a new transplant here. Thank you, Brattleboro, for taking a chance on me as the new police chief. I give honor to God always for everything that I've done. I've been so fortunate in the things that I've survived. I am a child of the 60s, so I do understand civil rights movement. Watch my mother and my father do wonderful things within our community. And I also watch them suffer for not standing down. I'm a firm believer of standing up for what I believe in. I've dedicated over 30 years into my profession, but I do believe that being in this profession and being of service to my community is not of a separate path to serve my community, because everyone wants to feel safe within their community, and everyone should know who they can come to feel that safety and to be welcomed on the same level of anyone else that lives in the community. I want to thank my wife because having to deal with this for 16 years has been quite a few up and downs. And I thank my family, of course. I thank Peter for welcoming me here, and I thank Jackie Reese for giving me somewhere to live when I got here, because that was quite the tour to find somewhere to live. So I will say that, Vermont, when you are having people come to start new careers and to bring their families and to raise their children, some of the things that you need to speak about and to build on are places for people to live, affordable housing for people, and some of the things that we always talk about, of course, are as welcoming as you want to be. If someone does not know where to get their hair done, all right, or find the food that they want to eat in different cultures. I'm half West Indian, so I'm still trying to find that balance of good West Indian food. So I know that it's a hard job, but it's just something that I like to tell people to stay, keep in mind. I thank you, Curtis, because my first week here, you reached right out to me also, and I appreciate that. And I will say that I'm so blessed. I feel so blessed to have this opportunity. I'm so proud of the work that we are accomplishing with my police department. I think that you in the community will be very happy with some of the things you'll see happening within the Brattleboro Police Department. You will see more officers of color, more women. And I think that is important because when people feel like they have someone that understands the things that they go through on a daily, then they're more apt to come and speak to us about it. And I will remind you all that, since day one that I've been here, I do have an open door policy. And that's even for the hard conversations. And myself and Dr. Gillum have had quite a few of those. And I still smile when I look at him. So Dr. Sparrow, thank you for reaching out from day one and trying to help me find somewhere to live. And I remember all of your emails asking me, did you find a house yet? Did you find a house yet? So like I said, I'm just fortunate in so many ways and so many things. And I just want to thank you all for this wonderful and fantastic honor. Thank you.
Norma, congratulations. Thank you, everybody. You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Can you feel the love tonight? Oh, so there are a lot of ways of expressing love, and one of the other aspects of our community, I'm going to keep talking until I see the 4 people doing benedictions are in the area, so if you want this to be short. So, so through the history of the NAACP, leaders and people of different faiths have walked together, linked arms, as we say, singing songs together. And so we thought it would be appropriate to end with words of the different faith traditions that live in this community. Of course, the most recent one being our Afghan refugees. So the imam of that community is here tonight with us as well. I do want to note just really briefly that Rabbi Amita is still in Jerusalem. So we have 2 or 1. Andy Weissman will be filling in for her. And Claire Stanley actually is not here. Cheryl Wilfong is for the Buddhist community. So without further ado, we have some final blessings before we stand and sing We Shall Overcome Together. Okay. So Andy, you want to start?
Hi. So I'm honored to represent the Brattleboro area Jewish community tonight and proud of my people's historic involvement with the NAACP, the fight for civil rights and racial equality. I'm honored to represent the faith community here tonight, one of the faith communities that are presenting, as we are reminded of our role as faith leaders and participants to teach, as one of our great rabbis taught, race, prejudice, a universal human ailment is the most recalcitrant aspect of the evil in man, a treacherous denial of the existence of God. That's our duty, to teach that. And though God has a stake in the outcome, we're taught that ultimately it's up to us. So the benediction I'm going to share is meant to inspire us to work, to continue the work that the folks under this tent have been doing so well, and I'm honored to be doing this alongside you. Mi ha'ish hechafetz chaim. Who is the person who desires life? Ohev yamim le'iro tov, and loves days to see good in them. Netzor leshon chameira, guard your tongue from evil. Usfatecha medaber mirma, and your lips from speaking deception. Sur mera vasei tov, turn away from evil and do good. Bakei shalom verot fehu, seek peace and pursue it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Cooper, and I'm representing the Center Congregational Church in honor, Stefan, of the theme that you and your executive have chosen this evening, focusing on building community, and in honor of the black tie collegium that our keynote speaker, Reverend Thomas, spoke of, and also in honor of the Christian heritage, which is a very broad and ecumenical and even interfaith heritage in the United States, just as is the heritage of the African National Congress, of which I'm far more familiar with. In honor of these three things, I thought the most appropriate blessing that I could give is the lyrics from a hymn written in 1782 entitled, "Blessed be the tie that binds." Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in sibling love. The fellowship of kindred minds is like to that above. Before our parents' throne, we pour out our ardent prayers, our fears, our hopes, our aims are one, our comforts and our cares. We share our mutual woes, our mutual burdens bear, and often for each other flows the sympathizing tear. When we are called to part, Senator Leahy, it gives us inward pain. But we shall still be joined in heart and hope to meet again. That glorious hope revives our courage by the way, while each in expectation lives and waits to see the day. And the psalm concludes, From sorrow, toil, and pain, and sin, we shall be free, and perfect love and friendship reign through all eternity. May you all be blessed this evening. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I am Imam of the Mosque Community Afghani. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عسى ربكم أن يرحمكم وإن عدتم عدنا وجعلنا جهنم للكافرين حسيرا. إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا كبيرا وأن الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة أعتدنا لهم عذابا أليما. ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه بالخير وكان الإنسان عجولا. وجعلنا الليل والنهار آيتين فمحونا آية الليل وجعلنا آية النهار مبصرا. فمحونا آية الليل وجعلنا آية النهار مبصرة لتبتغوا فضلا من ربكم ولتعلموا عدد السنين والحساب. صدق الله الكبير المتعال. Thank you so much.
I invite you now to rest in the silence that has been here since time immemorial. Taking a breath, perhaps closing your eyes, perhaps gazing at the mountain Wantastigot. Feeling the breath in the body. Perhaps noticing that the air can never be claimed as me or mine. I am breathing the breath of everyone in this tent. The breath of everyone who has lived on this land. Hearing the sounds, and behind the sounds, hearing the silence. Feeling the life running through my veins, your veins. This life that did not begin with this body, but has been here since time immemorial. This life of the grass beneath our feet, the sky above our heads, the trees, the animals of the forest, the fish of the streams. This life that we call ours is much larger, for it is all of ours. The words from a Buddhist chant. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, the goodness that arises from all of our practice of being here right now with each other, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world. May the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of Death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile may all beings receive the blessings of my life. Thank you.
So Stefan Brandstatter is here with the shofar, which is a horn that is blown through many traditions. So he'll finish with that. And then Rich has offered to sing a traveling song for us. So we're going to do that before. Okay.
It's a special honor for me to be here standing in front of you about the blast, blow the blast of this ancient instrument. One more time.
We'll keep this short. I'd like to send you on your way, your mutual homes where you're traveling to, with a traditional traveling song from the Abenaki people. I have fellow community members here. We'll sing it for you together, just 2 reps. And the practice comes from the fact that as the people would move through the landscape on the water, traveling in their canoes, as they would approach a village, they would announce themselves with song. They would be greeted back with song. These songs were particular to the community, so you would know who was coming. You didn't have smartphones. No one texted ahead. So you'd hear these voices, and you would answer back. So we'd like to send you off with a traveling song. It uses words that are not translatable anymore. They're more of a chant, what's called vocable. But here you go. Ready? Yo guano de guano dane. Yo guano de guano dane. Gayawana hey hey yo yo hey. 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 Yo guano de guano dane. Yo guano de guano dane. Gayawana hey hey yo yo hey. 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 Ulivam kani, safe travels to you.
Just ask people to sing "We Shall Overcome" as you leave. How is that? Because of the lay down.
Yeah.
People out there before dark.
So I don't know if you can actually see the back of your programs at this point. But what we would like to do, well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming. We have really enjoyed you, and we hope that you've enjoyed us. And we tried to be as inclusive as possible. As you all leave, there is a song on the back of your booklets called "We Shall Overcome." I would love if you could sing it as we walked out or as you left. You could stand and sing it as well. No pressure. Yeah, can I have the back of the booklet? Because I actually left mine back there. Thank you. Okay, so with me, I'm not the best singer. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Thank you.
You were good. Thank you.
Now this song plays me. It sings me. And I never do a show without singing this song. Betsy, it is so good. It is so good. It's so good, and I love to see you. And it seemed like we made a lot of friends here in Vermont. Ah, you remember, yes. So we'd like to sing this song for you. Yeah, girl, yeah. Go ahead now. Now here you go. They say everything can be replaced. And they say every distance is not near. But I remember every face of every man and woman who put me here. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. They say every man needs protection. And they say every man you know must fall. They have to fall. But I can see my reflection somewhere inside and outside these walls. So I have to sing my song, and I gotta say, I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, day now, I shall be released. Yeah. Good. Don't blame me. Don't blame me. All day long, all day long, all day long. That man cried out so loud. Yes, he did. Hey, I'm not to blame. I'm not to blame. Oh, now I see my light come shine.
It's shining bright.
From the west down to the east. Any day now. Any day now. Any day now. Any day, everybody. I gotta sing it again.
Come on, let's sing it again then.
I see my light come shining. You can join in if you want. From the west down to the east. Any day now. Any day now. Any day now. I shall be. Let's sing it one more time. Here we go. I see my light come shining. I can hear them. I can hear them. Yes. From the west down to the east. Any day now. Any day now. Any day now. Coming on soon. I shall be. We shall all be sweet. I see my light shine, shine from the west down to the east. From the west down to the east. Any day now. Any day now. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, 'cause I shall be. Amen, y'all. Amen. 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 Amen.
I, ho, aha.
Thank you, Vermont. Thank you. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Wally. Thank you, everyone.